What if I told you the new Absolute Martian Manhunter had no Martian? Hey, Internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the Internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. So, the Absolute DC Universe has been a huge success. The first three books, Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman, and Absolute Superman, have all been financial and critical successes. And that's got everyone excited for the second wave of Absolute books, which features Absolute Flash, Absolute Green Lantern, and Absolute Martian Manhunter. Before we dive into Absolute Martian Manhunter, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it. Absolute Martian Manhunter is written by Dennis Camp and drawn by Javier Rodriguez. Camp, you may know from The Ultimate, so he's playing both sides.
The reason I'm telling you all this is because I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
Doing Absolute DC and Ultimate Marvel. What's interesting about Absolute Martian Manhunter, in terms of what the field looks like, I think it's the book we know the least about in the Absolute universe. We've got some hints of it, and there's been some talk from Camp, also Scott Snyder, who's leading this initiative, but it's very hard to kind of nail down what this book is about, especially considering that Camp is a relatively newcomer when it comes to Big Two comics, writing The Ultimates and now Absolute Martian Manhunter. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly his take. Sometimes you know a writer and you're like, okay, I know where they're going to go with this. And I think that's a good thing, especially with The Ultimates. The Ultimates is one of my favorite ongoing series. Last year, it was so interesting. I didn't know what to expect with that book, and I think it does such a good job of flipping the mythos and also being able to be a great ongoing book. And it's one of those books that you can pick up at any time because every issue feels like its own story, like a chapter in a book, and you're still interested in the ongoing and the overarching story, but it's something I can recommend to anyone, and they'll pick up any issue, particularly like a issue 4 with Ultimate Doctor Doom's origin, which is insane. So I'm excited to see more Camp work, and especially with Martian Manhunter, because you have a take where it seems like it's a sci-fi psychological thriller, and it's such a radical change from what we know about Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter, as we know, is a character that is the last survivor of Mars and has a particular set of powers. And in this, you do have John Jones, which is Martian Manhunter's alter ego, but he's a human, and the thing that gives him his powers is this alien force, like a parasite. So I'm wondering how that's going to translate, especially in terms of his powers. We know that Martian Manhunter is a shapeshifter. In this, sort of the design of Martian Manhunter is kind of like Gumby, and Javier Rodriguez has shared some like claymations and animations of the character, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like when it plays out in the book. And also what this story is about, like who's the villain, what's it like, will it be revealed that, hey, there are more of these parasites, how it's infecting, is it going to be something based on conspiracy theories? To be honest, it kind of feels like a little bit like a book more suited for the question, just because of the mystery around everything you see. Martian Manhunter is a character that I think needs the spotlight, and it is cool to see that in the first 6 books of this new Absolute universe, they've led with a Martian Manhunter book, because I've been wanting one for a really long time. If you've read any Martian Manhunter, I do recommend John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake's run from the 90s, which is fantastic, and also Steve Orlando and Riley Rossmo's Martian Manhunter, which was like a maxi series, which was really cool. I'm a little disappointed with Absolute Martian Manhunter, because out of the Absolute books, this one seems like the one that is kind of slated right now as a miniseries. So there's 6 issues, which will be 1 arc. Dennis Cap has shared that if sales do well, we'll see it extended. DC has a history of that. We saw Green Arrow turn into an ongoing series that was initially supposed to be 6 or 7, and now I think it's on issue 20. And then you have things like Ron v Swamp Thing, which I also think was supposed to be like 6, and then was extended to 12, then ended with like about 16. So DC is willing to extend things that do well, which is good, and I think the hype around the other Absolute titles should carry the book. And hopefully, with DC launching Superman this summer, you have Hush 2 coming out, that these big projects rise and bring up something like an Absolute Martian Manhunter, because I'm really excited to get more Dennis Camp work at the big two. This is the kind of things that they need, because it's easy to say like, hey, like people are just like strung on nostalgia and they just want to see radically different takes of the same heroes. But I think it's just more about doing interesting things with superhero comics. I think all the Absolute books, yes, they're playing with iconic characters, but I think they're all doing really interesting things in superhero comics that we've only seen in really the indie scene, and they're bringing it to the forefront, and I think that's what's got fans excited. I'm excited to see some art. Like, this is also the only book where we haven't seen like panels or pages. Like, we've seen covers but not much of what's going on inside the book, and Scott Snyder has shared that like really if they talk anything about this book, it kind of spoils the surprise. That kind of tells me that that first issue is going to be insane, and it's going to have to be a day one read for me. What do you think? Are you excited for Absolute Martian Manhunter? I know I am. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace.